Renaissance thought. And the way to attain that condition was through engaging and challenging our minds, maximizing their potential, seeking a higher level of communion with and understanding of the Supreme Being. And the generations of men that followed after this line of thought produced those men who constructed Freemasonry as we know it, enhancing their newfound awareness by seeking to manifest it outwardly through their actions, be they individual or social. And this then leads into the philosophical canals which flow into what we know as the Enlightenment. So the modern and verifiable origin of Freemasonry in the early 18th century, note that I said modern and verifiable origin of Freemasonry. This stands perfectly on the cusp of those two significant ages in human development. And it finds like-minded men organizing themselves into lodges in order to create a rarefied space to do exactly that kind of work. To be sure, they celebrated their endeavors with hearty banquets to unwind from the rigor of their intellectual and ritual labor. But in the midst of this, they remained true to the notion that they were engaged in an exercise of personal advancement for the benefit of self and society. When one approaches the craft in this way, everything one does in the lodge, from the lights to the regalia to our physical movements, becomes a pursuit of excellence, of that very state of betterness that allows us to distinguish the Masonic world of the lodge from the profane world outside. Having an empirical experience of this higher, more refined state of being confirms that such a state is possible for us, outside of the lodge as well as inside. We can know that because we will have achieved it. And we then take the inner knowledge that it is possible to better ourselves. We take that knowledge out into the world. I want to stress that this is not done as a function of Freemasonry itself in the world, as a visible social force, but as the better man in the world, the individual, improved by his Masonic education, study and discipline. The question that then follows is, well, are you saying then that non-Masons and society as a whole are to be left without this knowledge unless we find some way to bring them into the craft? Not at all. Not at all. Because the lessons found in the system of Freemasonry are not and never have been found exclusively within our doors. To the contrary, one of the most noble deeds of Freemasonry has always been to fashion itself as a repository or a magnet for the world's great philosophical ideas, ideas which have existed for millennia. Many of you will know that before universities were available to society at large, and indeed before the development of a middle class anywhere in the world, lodges sought to be universities of the common man, challenging the obscurantism of kings and clergy in the name of free thought for all. So the craft, true to its name, is a method of instruction in these higher things. It is not those higher things themselves. And I think this is what is meant when we say that Freemasonry, while essentially religious, is not a religion. Certainly there are many roads to enlightenment, but we are concerned only with ours and how we practice it. By selectively introducing seekers of knowledge into our ranks, we do our part in those places we can to add to the ranks of thinking beings everywhere, with the intention that they will share the benefit of our teaching by way of the quality of their minds. That being said, if we fail to approach the craft in this way, we take the path of least resistance and soon become unable to tell the difference between the lodge and any other social club in our community. Absent an interest in observance, that is, in reaching for the light through our study and our actions and our diligence and our commitment, lodges risk ceasing to be in any way Masonic. They simply absorb whatever enjoyments and pastimes from the outside world their members enjoy, and mistakenly continue to label such superficial miscellany as Masonry. Brethren, if lodge meetings and functions are no different from any other social function one would normally have in life, save for the symbols and the jargon, then in time brothers will have forgotten what Masonry truly is. They will have abandoned what makes it the treasure it has been for centuries to the best of men in all stations in life. It'll become just like everything else, conforming to everything else, and nothing more. The very thing that makes the craft special will have been sacrificed to what is easy and comfortable. And the quarries then become filled with idlers who want the benefits of being called craftsmen without actually doing or knowing how to do any work. And this dilemma is exactly what is confusing so many men who are becoming Freemasons today. They have sought something in Freemasonry that they have, for whatever reason, been led to believe holds meaning or stability or some kind of nobler order of things. In some cases they've heard about it, or they may have read things. All these things which have led them to believe that when they express an interest and submit a petition, that they're on the path to joining just such an organisation. What they find, however, in more cases than one should like to admit, is an old boys' club just like any other, with nothing distinguishable about it, except the fact that it has a legal claim to a name and a legacy it has no intention of living up to. We can bring these men into the craft by whatever means, and at whatever pace one wishes. We will have already lost them before they're raised, because we will have lost ourselves. Observing the craft, returning to the pursuit of meaning instead of mediocrity, can help all of us to avoid such an outcome, and we must avoid that outcome. Now, before the accusation of elitism creeps in, as it often does, let me reiterate once more that Masonry is not now, and never was meant to be, for everyone. I ask you, what do you call an organisation that selects its members? None of us needs to be a Mason. I'll say that again. None of us needs to be a Mason. And I say that to emphasise this. We choose to pursue the craft. It stands to reason then that if we are going to do so, then we should do it well. And understand that a commitment to creating an atmosphere of quality and excellence is not simply desired, but required. That brings me to this question of our exclusivity in the midst of the masses, and consequently to the matter of secrecy. Oh yes, much hand-wringing goes on today in Freemasonry about the question of secrecy in the craft. My brethren, I offer to you the opinion that those brethren who are overly concerned with, unsettled by, or who find somehow distasteful the idea that Masonry involves secrets, perhaps should never become Masons to begin with. Secrecy is a quintessential and indispensable component of our fraternity, as well as of all great initiatic schools of mystery and philosophy since time immemorial. The Proverbs of Solomon agree with this sentiment, teaching us that a tale-bearer revealeth secrets, but he that is of a faithful spirit concealeth them. And that is why the first lesson taught to the apprentice is that of secrecy. This matter is not subject to debate among those brothers who honour their obligations and understand why they took them. We value secrecy because it respects the privacy of the spiritual quest of both the individual Mason and the lodge. Secrecy is a right as well as a virtue. It is not and never has been a flaw in our brotherhood. To the contrary, it has revealed flaws in the nature of man among those who would reveal those secrets. Now certainly, many people come to Freemasonry in search of our secrets, thinking that there's some great hidden prize to be found, one that only Masons can possess. They totally miss the fact that, as with all other stories of man confronting himself, the secret is within each of us. Masonry gives a man nothing but the tools with which he may discover himself. In other words, we present him with a mirror. And the true secret lies in his choice of whether or not he will look in that mirror. If he turns away, he will find nothing at all in our rituals or assemblies. Even though he may be a Mason with as many modes of recognition and titles and honours as he may obtain, he will never understand that secret, and as a result will never understand why we cherish it.